Had very similar, seemed like you had very similar backgrounds and almost running a parallel course, in your life. And we wanted to talk today about mental health and what we can, some of the options that we have and some of the things that people can do listening out there, things that have worked for you, for both of you. It's such a personal thing, mental health, and how we deal with our own mental health. We deal with it in our own ways, and we need to be mindful of what triggers us, right? And then what to avoid and how to stay healthy. So I just thought it would be a fascinating conversation today, along with Nicola Carpinelli here, to talk to both of you about mental health and how it's affected your life. For many years, there's a stigma, right, of that you're crazy, if you are emotional or depressed, there's something wrong with you, right? It's not, rather than a feeling of hope and helping someone, we tend to, put those people away or push them away or make fun of them, right? That would be that seems what happens when someone is depressed. You go the other way. You don't want that in your life. You don't help as much as maybe we should. You're dealing with your own thing, and they're left to suffer. 450 million people currently suffer from mental illness right now, according to the World Health Organization. And 1 in 4 Americans suffer from at least one mental illness. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. And in 2019, 47,500 Americans died by suicide. There was 1.3 million attempted suicide. So this is something in this year that I think is the topic, the conversation that we should all be having. Do you agree?
Well, certainly no.
I think that Ann and I were sort of talking and joking and really kind of diving into each other's lives in a way. It's funny, I didn't realize your book was called Me Crazy, and my movie is called Running from Crazy. Because I think that there is stigma around mental illness and instability, because we want to project to the world that we're all okay. And I think what happens is life starts, we start to understand ourselves and life goes on, and you start to realize that, no, wait a second, I come from this and it's probably best for me to share it. And what I was so thrilled is just to hear you really owning, the story. And the great news is about owning the story is that when you tell the story from a place of ownership, you can actually get to let the story go. And it also enables other people to go, oh my God, I see in your eyes the same thing, because your story, by the way, is, whoa, slow that train down. It's your story is really quite extraordinary, but it's not really what happens in the story.
That's right.
It's what's happening in your heart and how you
The
feel.
full of conscious emotion is what we're all diving into. I think one of the things that we forget along the path of healing is to decide and define what it is that we're talking about. When you talk about mental illness, without defining what it is.
Really? No. Hey, hello.
I think it helps when we talk about anything. We have a lot of assumptions about things that people make. Love, we can assume that love, we're talking about love. I love you, you love me. Well, then we should just totally understand what that is. But the fact of the matter is, the action of definition, we are doing, everybody wants something different. Or says, I love to be treated like ABC. When I love you, you prefer to be treated ABC. We have a different understanding of what it does that makes us feel loved. And I think we get confused by a definition of mental illness. I think it's hard to understand how many people are in this, because to me, what we look at when we see someone that we don't understand is that we're seeing their truth, and they don't know sometimes how to take that truth and offer it in a society that feels very different than theirs at home. And so we're witnessing something that is the pain that we don't know how to contain, that we're not sure how to manage in our households, and we then, without knowing it, are spilling it, and it creates a rejection rather than a sympathy, because we don't know it, we don't understand it, and we haven't been given the grace to be able to say when we see something that we don't understand, ask for its definition and truth. It's an opening to compassion. Mental illness, to me, is the looking at the person who is living in a truth that they can't express or explain physically, mentally, or emotionally in a way that relates or connects. When you look at that, I would say the numbers are way higher than what you said.
Yes.
I think we live in a world where we are not seen with a compassionate self. We are seen as a rejective. We reject ourselves, and therefore we reject others because we can't come 100% ourselves. And so in the working of sharing story, for me, that's what we're trying to do, is open the channel to say what it is that's unique about you is my pleasure to understand, is my gift that you're sharing, is my intelligence and my choice to listen, or to say maybe this is something I'm uncomfortable with and this isn't for me. But when we enter a conversation or enter a community with somebody, it's with 100% respect of who they are. And I think that would help mental illness not be put in such a place if we see it as just the truth of who you are, that you haven't quite been given the correct channel to share yourself through, then maybe we can be helpers. And I think that's what Mariel and I are doing, and sharing our story to connect onward with what you were talking about too. We share, so we create the chain of compassion that allows people to be and tell the truth about who they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's critical. That ability to just be who you are, and be accepted for who you are.
Yes.
And mental illness is, and it's a problem because we call it mental illness.
That's right.
You know, the minute you say that, it gets creepy. You start to feel like, oh, that doesn't feel so hot. You know, like that feels creepy. We don't like that. And the truth is, I think there's more mental illness out there, or mental instability out there, than like you said, than anybody's willing to kind of really hold on to. And you know, what we're trying to do with the Dead Poets Foundation is give some education to kids, to people, to parents, so that we can understand that the world that we live in is not the 50s. It's not how we were brought up. It's different. And we have to come at it with new parameters and we gotta give a stable groundwork for people to live life. I think life has become incredibly complicated, but life really isn't that complicated if you take it down to the brass bones of it. You and I have come from massively complicated backgrounds with massively complicated people who are creative and genius and sick and angry and blah, you know, it's a lot of stuff, but that's great. We have that in common, and I can see that in your eyes, and we both want to cry all the time. But you know, how do we move from that story of pain, and that story of alcoholism and addiction? I mean, Nico, you come from that. But how can we shift from that and say, how can we create a world from here?
That's right.
A compassionate world where people know how to breathe and know how to do things that make sense. Communication, like what is communication? How do you really do that? And is communication and sharing your story really, and you brought this up before the show, it's about union. It's about coming together. I mean, your show is called Better Together. You know, like, and it is. We're all better together, and we all heal by coming together.
Well, one of the balances that seems to be going, first of all, I never called myself mentally ill, other people did.
Right.
So that, right off the bat.
Right.
But as you're saying,
And how hurtful is that, you know, to hear that?
Dude, I've been through, are you kidding? People have called me every single thing in that they possibly could. I don't think anybody has ever defined me in a realistic way, and I think that's because we forget to ask questions. When I wrote Call Me Crazy, If I had known that people were going to do what I said, I would have called my book, Call Me Sane. Like, are you kidding me? I am the sanest person. I am the most truthful person. My truth is not something that people were used to hearing. So crazy became the word in between that defines the space of I don't get you. And I think that's a lot of what this mental instability or crazy is called. I don't get you, so I'm going to call you something that everybody can agree on is not worth exploring.
And I can walk away.
And I can walk away. Nuts. I have no responsibility because you're nuts. And now I can go pat myself on the back and have a beer. Now, and feel good about myself that I'm not that. At least I'm not that. And I think that's how we move through this foundation that we've established in our society. Whereas if we lift the mental illness and put in a disease, a dis-ease in who others are, we are uncomfortable with knowing what we see. If we stop ignoring what we know and we start abiding what we see, we begin a community of compassion. We don't need to be everybody's best friend, nor do we need, but if we show another that they are 100% capable and experienced enough within themselves to find and seek the help that they need, we become a part of the foundation. Just in seeing another, we can communicate 100% you got it, by standing in a grocery line with our masks on. You got you, you got you, you got you, I can see you. The capacity with which we see is the capacity with which we look. I can see you, and we can see it in others, what their capacity is. That's the disease with the self that doesn't allow us to look at another because we are ashamed of our own being. If we just start flipping that upside down into an ease of conscious thought, saying to another, you are it, man. You are 100% you, and you got it. Whether or not I ever see you again, I can create a conscious culture of
a culture of acceptance.
Of acceptance.
I mean, and what about this past year has been, it's been a ton of non-acceptance, like all this disruption. It's, not only ever, I mean, in our lifetime, it's like we never thought we'd come to a place where all the striving that we got to a certain point, it all crumbled. And it was like, but in some ways, maybe that was good. Maybe all the crumbling needed to happen so we could go, okay, let's get really honest about this.
The universe is seeing us.
Yeah.
We created this.
And we created
and we're going to create it as long as we are putting our children up against each other to blow each other's heads off.
Yeah.
It's going to, as long as there is that disease of war in the world, that famine of conscious thought is going to continue to create true disease in the world, because it doesn't have any place else to go. It's like an abuser. An abuser starts with being, it starts verbally. Right. You talk to any cop, talk to any detective. You know what happens next? It becomes violence. Every single woman who is in prison, who is there for anything that has happened in their family that has been violent, that they took out on somebody else, started with verbal abuse. Then it got worse, and then it got worse, and it got worse until they had to explode, and then they become a criminal because they have to find a way out. There's only one path, and it's the same with anything else that we deposit in our lives. If I deposit my goodness to you, guess what? I'm going to get it back because that's what I'm putting down. But without the system of education that says the simplest of things make us be able to create community. If I look at you with love in my eyes and 100% connect, that's contagious. That contagion is as powerful in its connection, and that's the only thing that, in my opinion, is going to create ease out of this disastrous war on, to me, it's hate and abuse that we are looking at right now, and we have landed exactly in a place where
but don't you feel
new.
Like it's
let's try something else.
Yeah. Don't you think it's, in my opinion, it's as easy as a different choice.
That's right.
Like we could all just go, I don't want this anymore. I'm going to make a new choice. I'm going to make a new choice, and I'm just going to listen. And even though you keep trying to talk, and I'm just not listening.
I have nothing to say. No, but for me, like when you said like people used to call you everything in the book crazy and all this stuff, and like, that happened for me, and then I felt like an obligation to almost live up to that craziness, and it was.
Oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm living up to the obligation. I finally called the press. That's what I'm doing.
I got a solution.
Well, now you know why you're doing it.
I have a solution for you. You move to Bend, Oregon.
Yeah.
Come live over where I'm at. You know, it's where nobody knows what I used to do, what I did, and I don't have to.
You can just bury your head.
I had to get away from those friends that, like, you know, knew me as that crazy drug addict, you know, bipolar, whatever they wanted to, you know, like put on me. Because I felt like I had an obligation to like live up to it. Like they'd be like, Nicola, who are you gonna punch tonight? You know, like that guy.
Like for their entertainment.
Yeah.
You're nuts is their entertainment.
But yeah, like once I separated myself, I got a different perspective. I stepped out of the hurricane that was my life and was the helicopter hovering over. I was able to see what needed to be done, how I needed help. You know, get rid of drugs and alcohol, and then move to, you know, towards being the real person who I was. I remember there was a time, it's probably saying too much, but I used to sell drugs at one point, and there was a guy that would bring me money from stuff that he sold, and I remember him walking by a picture of me as an 8-year-old boy, and he looked at the picture and stopped dead in his tracks, and he looked at me and said, "Where's that guy?" And it just brought tears to my eyes. And I remember I was a really nice kid.
Right.
I didn't do drugs. I was a caring. Like I would sew with my grandmother, knit, what she would teach me to knit, and we drink tea at 4, and you know. And I started to, but I had to remove myself from the what people had established. Now I can, my strength, I can now show what the transformation is, and hopefully it's infectious and other people pick up on it. And they give them hope, because, you know, in the running joke when you're on drugs is like, no one gets out of this, you know. But like you do, and I'm gonna make it happen and be the example.
You founded the Dead Poets Foundation with Mariel Hemingway, and look at what is happening. You are a resource. You are both a resource, and you're leading a movement, and you're helping people from, you know, that kid is back.
Well, and I think we all have to reintroduce ourselves to the child that didn't get the love, or that grew up too fast, had to take care of, you know, whatever your story is, because